And now it's time for the Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and Michael Best Strategies.
Hi, I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
And I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And we're the Insiders, and this is our take on the pivotal elections in Wisconsin that occurred this week. First, Chuck, let's start with the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, the most expensive judicial race in the nation's history by a factor of 3, front page of newspapers all over the country. What's your take on the race?
Well, it's amazing. Janet Protasewicz, not only an 11% win, but again, as we've said before, women spoke, but they didn't just speak, they roared. They were amazing. I heard from people who said they were in line to vote, and there were lines, and it was 70, 80, 90% women in line. The abortion issue clearly drove this, and it drove it in a big way. By the way, even beyond women, college students, there were 55,000 more college students who turned out in this election than they would in a general election in the fall. That means we're talking about numbers here where more than a spring election, these young people were turning out even more than you would get in a gubernatorial election. That tells you something about the future, what this means for the Republican Party. The Republican Party made this bargain in the 80s that, you know what, we're going to abandon kind of our individual freedom approach. And we're going to say, you know, the government really ought to make decisions about these intimate decisions about whether or not you have a child. And they all went down that road. It is now coming back to bite them. This is a dangerous position for them to be in. I think that this could bleed to the point where it could drive Wisconsin to be really a solidly blue state. It's certainly for statewide elections. And I think this is a dangerous situation for Republicans politically going forward.
Well, it was a big night for the Democrats and for Janet Protasewicz. I think in general that that night was really defined by both the candidates and the turnout. So first on the candidates, Protasewicz decided to campaign essentially as a legislative candidate. She campaigned on the issues, whereas Kelly decided to campaign on process and the Constitution. And believe me, more people will be interested in hearing a debate about the issues than about process and the Constitution. It's also more likely to affect turnout. And she had a red hot button issue to affect turnout. People said, well, Kelly ran last time and it was a Democratic presidential primary. If it weren't for that, he would have won. Well, the Democrats essentially went out and recreated a Democrat presidential primary sort of a crowd. They had a hot button issue to drive turnout across the state of Wisconsin. In the meantime, our guy was giving a law course on the side. That's not a good candidate contrast. It was clearly a good night for Democrats. And the results of this election are really profound. I mean, it will affect Wisconsin politics and Wisconsinites' lives for the next couple of decades. We on the Republican side need to do a better job of not only picking our candidates, but also picking the issues that we're going to campaign on. And I think we failed on both counts in that race. In contrast, though, I would say in Senate District 8, you had a situation where same issue climate, same turnout, and Knodl was able to win. I think that has to do really with the fact that in Wisconsin, in the last 40 years, what we've seen is that if an assembly representative is trying to get promoted to the state Senate, and I think all but 2 cases in the last 40 years, they have succeeded in getting that promotion. And it's usually because they've worked the district hard. People have met them, and all the advertising has less to do with their final decision than personal connections that they have made with the representatives in the past. So I think Knodl was able to weather that storm simply because people knew him and weren't quite willing to believe the things they were seeing on television in Milwaukee.
I think Scott is putting the best face on it possible, but he's really whistling past the graveyard. Knodl district, the reason Knodl won in that district is it's been gerrymandered to be even more Republican. Whitefish Bay was taken out of that district. So this thing is, this district with a very minor tweak is going to be a Democratic district in the 2024 election. So Mr. Knodl should enjoy being in the state Senate because it's going to be a very short-lived victory. And I'll tell you what, I think that once you see redistricting, what happened here, what's really dangerous for Republicans, the Bow counties entirely went for Protasewicz. the bow counties, which is really supposedly the marginal seats, and then the wild counties, which are supposed to be the place where Republicans bring it home. Outagamie County, 52%. That was it on this race. Now, on the Supreme Court race. The reality here is Seneca, Havish Seneca, and Jody was a fantastic candidate. You just give her a little bit better district. Remember, she came even closer than Tony Evers did against, than he did in terms of taking that particular county. So this tells you that this thing is definitely going in the direction of Democrats heavily. And I do not think that having better candidates is the thing that's going to make Republicans win. It's going to be who is going to be the first Republican to jump ship and say, I'm not totally pro-life. Until they do that, or until abortion is absolutely secure across the country, I think Republicans have a problem. It's Houston, we have a problem, and I don't think there's an answer coming from Houston from the Republican Party.
So Chuck, in the past, you've talked about the Republicans being the dog that caught the truck and doesn't quite know what to do with it now when the court gave them the abortion decision that they had long sought. I think if the Wisconsin Supreme Court gives Democrats the decision they would like on abortion and completely wipes out the 1849 law, they're going to be in a somewhat similar situation, because if you look at the polling, both parties' positions are out of step with the public. The 1849 law that Republicans are defending today is not popular with the public, and neither is the Democrats' all-out pro-abortion stance popular with the public. The public's position is in the middle. They're like, I would accept abortion except for cases of rape and incest at maybe 15 weeks. That's a majority position in the state of Wisconsin, and neither party is taking that position.
That's a good point, Scott. However, here's the problem with that. I thought that someone was rather visionary on the Democratic side here, on the progressive side. When I don't know, you probably saw the ad because we all saw it many times, of the woman who talked about the pregnancy that she had. This is a woman who was married and had a child. She was making a late-term pregnancy decision, and she had to make a decision to not have the child. But it was late term. But there are huge things that happen. And I think people in Wisconsin watching that woman and other women who were in similar commercials say, I don't want that decision in the hand of a bunch of old legislative guys. I want women to make that decision with their families and with their doctors. And I think that at the end of the day, there's far more interest in that and letting people make individual decisions, which is, by the way, consistent with what Republicans believe, other than in this particular area. And I think this is off-brand for Republicans. I think it's going to be a major problem for them. And I think that women have got the message here. And I don't think they're going to let this go. And I think the Republicans have caught the car. I don't think the Democrats are going to have that problem.
Well, I think we can agree that this issue is going to roil Wisconsin politics for at least another year and will be a major player in the presidential election in November of 2024.
For sure. We'll see you next time, folks.
You've been listening to The Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and Michael Best Strategies.